All right, so I guess I'll start the session. Good evening, everyone. My name is Abhishek Jain, and I'm pleased to invite you all to the second episode of the internship series by Plante. Towards the end of the session, we will also be having a Q&A session, for which I would request you all to put your questions in the live chat box. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Advait Tambe, a graduate of the 2019 batch of SLS Pune. He went on to work as a judicial intern to Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and also to the Honorable Justice Abdul Nazir. And he currently serves as a law clerk cum research assistant at the Supreme Court of India. In this session, Advait will be speaking in detail on the application process as well as the opportunities available during and after a judicial internship. I would now like to hand it over to Advait to begin the session.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. It's a pleasure to be over here and it's a pleasure to be invited. So, talking about a judicial internship and who should apply for such an internship. Anyone who's a law student, anyone who's completed their master's in law, or someone who wants to understand the procedure, basically the decision-making procedure, even if he's not from the law background, can apply for this internship. If you're interested in law and procedure to learn about the procedure, then I would suggest you work with the trial court with an advocate. But if you're interested in the decision-making procedure to know what the bench thinks, what the judge thinks, what are the points that the judge considers before making a decision, before making a decision. Am I audible? Am I frozen, it seems?
Yes, so I think your video is frozen.
Okay.
So maybe if you could just probably leave and rejoin.
Yeah, sure. Okay, have I unfrozen or am I still frozen?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, please.
All right. So I'll just restart as to who can apply for a judicial internship. Anyone who's a student of law, anyone who is pursuing law, who has completed his master's or is pursuing his master's, can always apply for a judicial internship. Anyone who is not from the legal background can also apply for this internship because you are able to witness the decision-making process that takes place in court. For those who are interested in how the process of law works, the procedure of law works, you can always work with an advocate in a trial court and understand the law procedure. Judicial internship, prima facie, is more about learning what the judge thinks, what are the points on which he bases his decision, and how does the entire process of writing a judgment, researching a judgment, or the entire process of authoring a judgment works. Now, anyone who's aiming for an LLM or anyone who is whose aim is to work within the judiciary can also pursue this internship. Secondly, who must apply for this internship? Students in their fourth year should normally apply for this internship because usually in the Supreme Court you will have matters related to arbitration. Basically, you will have matters from every sphere of the law. So it's imperative that you have basic knowledge of CPC, CRPC, and apart from the national law schools, there are traditional universities which normally do not have these subjects in their base years of first year or second year. They normally have these heavy duty subjects in their fourth and fifth year. Hence, it's advisable that all students who want to pursue this can apply in their fourth year. Or even when they're pursuing their LLM. Usually, a judicial internship is normally pursued because someone wants to become a law clerk in the Supreme Court. I pursued a judicial internship because I wanted to know the workings of the Supreme Court. Prior to taking up this internship, my all internships were based in Bombay. And I wanted to know what the legal culture of Delhi is, what the Apex Court is all about, how does the Apex Court work, how does Article 136 and Article 132 come into picture. And I decided to pursue an internship with Justice Chandrachud, then subsequently with Justice Nazir. How does one apply to these internships? So there are various ways through which one can apply. Sometimes your senior has already worked with a judge and he can give you their contact. Or sometimes your friend has worked with a judge and they can give you a contact. Or sometimes you know a particular judge because he was in the High Court and then he was elevated to the Supreme Court. So uh, then because you have worked with him in the High Court, you can always request him for an internship when he's elevated to the Supreme Court. Another way for people who do not have such contacts or do not have such means is the registry of the court. So if you go to the Supreme Court website, you will see that there's a email ID which is given below. I think it's the registrar ID or the normal Supreme Court ID. It's something at the rate sci.nic.in. So you can always mail your application over there on that email ID, and the registry will see to it that they will start processing your clerkship application. I mean, your internship application. Secondly, what you can do is, in case you're not that tech savvy, you can always send in your physical copies, your hard copies of your CV, and your cover letter and everything, and courier it to the Supreme Court as well. Now, when you go to the registry, there's always a chance that you may not be given the judge of your choice. Now, say you want to work with Justice Chandrachud or you want to work with the CJI. It all depends upon the vacancies that a particular judge currently has at that point of time. So, in case you have a particular judge in mind, see to it that you make it clear that yes, I would like to intern with this particular honorable judge. But at the same time, in case there is no vacancy, I would also like to intern with any other judge which has a vacancy. Do not miss out an opportunity to work in the apex court because there is no vacancy with the judge of your choice. Uh, Secondly, so personally, I would suggest that don't have any choice per se with which judge you want to intern with. Any judge that you get, you are going to learn a lot because at the end of the day, it's about the knowledge that you gain rather than the name that you want in your CV. See to it that your CV is less about name and more about the experience, more about the knowledge, more about the entire learning process that you undertake during that 1 month of internship or so. Secondly, for how long should you apply? So there are so usually people who have worked in law firms believe that a 2 week internship is okay, considering that Shadul Ahmad Chand and Salil Ahmad Chand and majority of these law firms take you for a 2 week internship period and then they extend it to a 4 week one. I would suggest that your minimum duration for applying for a judicial clerkship should be somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. The culture that you come across in the Supreme Court is completely different to what you must have experienced working with an advocate or working with a law firm. So see to it that your time duration for your time duration in your application is minimum 6 weeks to 8 weeks, and as I mean till the time your law school allows you to intern, because of course you have mandatory attendance and BCI regulations to adhere to. Now, secondly, what is the work that you do during the judicial internship? So, in the Supreme Court, Mondays and Fridays are miscellaneous days. Now, what are miscellaneous days? So, miscellaneous days are those days wherein fresh matters come for admission. So, they are either admitted by the court or they are denied by the court. Usually, what happens is if a party fails in the letters patent appeal that they have filed or in the regular second appeal that they have filed, they have an option to come to the Supreme Court under Article 136 by filing a special leave petition. Now, these special leave petitions are taken up on Mondays and Fridays, respectively. So, as a judicial intern, you will be working the same amount of hours as a judicial law clerk does, maybe a little less. Uh, but the work, by and large, will be the same as that of a law clerk. Mondays and Fridays, like I said, are miscellaneous matters. Supreme Court takes between 60 to 70 matters on both days. So you will be preparing something called as briefs. Briefs are nothing but case notes. So if a brief is of 200 pages, sometimes even of 1,000 pages, what you will do is you will pick up, or rather you will capture the important things inside that brief and you will write it down. You'll capture those important things mentioned in the paper book and you will put them down in a brief of say 1 page to, say, 3 pages if it's a long file. You normally put in the facts of the case. What did the lower court say? What does the impugned order say? What are the grounds on which the impugned order has been challenged? So that is by and large what you normally do as a judicial intern. Secondly, something that is very important as a judicial intern is to attend court proceedings, because the evolution of law takes place in court, especially in the Supreme Court. I mean, Vishakha guidelines came because of the Supreme Court judgment, or right to privacy became an integral part in India today because of the Supreme Court. So the evolution of law per se takes place in the Supreme Court, in constitutional matters, or in 3-judge matters, or in a division bench matter of 2 judges. So, I mean, I think the numero uno job as an judicial intern is to understand what is actually happening in the Supreme Court, and that can only be done by attending court proceedings every single day and understanding what is actually happening. Once you're done with these 2 things, you will be given research, not as much as you would want, but you will be given research. You will be mostly assisting a law clerk, or you may even be given independent research, and you will be researching on certain points of law or certain disputes that come across. And it'll be very interesting because your research will be read by a judge, used by him to write a judgment which shall affect change and bring about change to the 1.3 billion citizenry of this country. So it's a very interesting, a very scintillating experience per se. Now, what are my insights and the opportunities and the skills that I acquired? So the normal skills that I've acquired are basically the analytical skills that you acquire, or the art of writing. Your flow of writing increases. So if you already have publications, you will understand by reading judgments that you know how the entire flow of writing comes into picture, or how the judgment is actually drafted, as to how the facts are first talked about, and then they appreciate the evidence that is there, and finally it's the conclusion. That's normally the flow of judgment, and you understand how judgments are drafted and judgments are written. Secondly, so there's something which is very important that I would like to point out over here, that is the art of precision. So one thing that you understand by observing the judge is the art of precision. When you research for an advocate or in a law firm, you're basically researching for one party. So you think about those legal propositions from that party's perspective and not from an unbiased perspective. But as a judicial intern who's working with a judge whose duty is to be unbiased, you research from a very unbiased point of view. You try and research on the correct position of law, the most appropriate position of law, and beyond what advocates present. So the analysis of your question of law, it basically is very important, because you answer a law point which will create less mischief in the society. Sometimes the judiciary takes up the work of the legislature. For example, in the Triple Talaq case, the judiciary did take up the work of legislature. And that's when you understand that how important your research is, because at last it has far and wide repercussions. And it's not just about 2 parties, it's about, like I said, the 1.3 billion strong citizenry of this country. So the scope of error per se is quite negligible, and all ends need to be secured. And this is something that you will understand by observing your judge, by observing the way he works. And you will gain and learn many things by just observing. I mean, I still learn things day in and day out. There is not one day wherein I have said that, oh, I didn't learn anything today. I have learned every single day. It's just the discussion. And finally, coming to the main point in this entire internship is the proximity that you have to a judge, the ability to speak to him, the ability to express your thoughts to him, the ability to understand what is he thinking, and learn the way that he's thinking, as the way he approaches a point of law, the way he adjudicates a particular case. that is something which is most beneficial in a judicial internship. General tips per se, I would say that a lot of us have this habit of working towards, working smartly and securing those marks. But law isn't only about securing marks, and that is something that you will understand once you obtain your degree. Because at the end of the day, you will realize that it's not just about securing marks and writing an answer a particular way. It's also about learning the law. So for all of you who envisage a career in the judiciary, who envisage a career in litigation, or choose to work with a judge, see to it that you know your laws well, you understand them, you focus on your academics, and see to it that, whenever you form your arguments, they are not general issues per se. See, anyone can comment on any issue that is currently going on in this country. But as a law student, it is our duty to substantiate those particular arguments with law. That's the difference between a law student and any other student, because we understand what is actually happening. Now, there's also one point that I think that I missed is what sort of research do you conduct? What point of law do you conduct? That can be on the prerogative of a judge. He may ask you to research on a constitutional issue. He may ask you to research on a criminal law matter. And what does this research entail? If it's a constitutional issue, you may want to start with the parliamentary debates, the Constituent Assembly debates, as to how and what and why was this provision actually incorporated into the Constitution. Or if it's a criminal law, he may ask you for certain proceedings from the common law countries. Sometimes, if you read certain constitutional bench judgments, you will see that many times we have also quoted international proceedings. So you will also be researching on international proceedings. Now, secondly, there are many people who, of course, National Law School students have remote access to various law databases. But those students who do not possess such remote access to databases, we have something called as a Judges Library in the Supreme Court of India, wherein you will have every single resource at your disposal, paid and unpaid resources, because the Supreme Court subscribes to near about each and every law journal, every law reporter that is there in this country, and prestigious law reports from abroad as well, to be up to date as to the current judicial happenings across the world. Apart from that, I guess this is all that I would like to talk about when it comes to a judicial internship. If there are any questions or if I have missed on to something, I would like to know, and I would like to answer those queries, doubts as well.
Thanks a lot, Advait. I think that was a very, very good session. While I don't think that you've missed anything as such, there are still questions, because I think there's always questions. So I think you mentioned that the knowledge of the law is definitely one of the most important things that a law student should have if they're considering to apply for a judicial internship. But other than that, obviously, there is also the requirement of you having to send a CV or an application of sorts. So what do you think actually makes a good application and a successful application? You're on mute, Advait.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the difference between a judicial internship and a corporate internship. Corporate law firms normally value rank ones, or they value publications or your prior experience. And usually from my time in law school, I've always seen that majority of the top tier law firms normally take the top ranking students in a batch, and they have this entire questionnaire and all of that. Judicial internships per se in the High Court and the Supreme Court do not follow this procedure. They do not have a particular questionnaire, or they do not have any sort of interview. I mean, yes, when you apply as a law clerk cum research assistant, you have to write an exam and then you have to give an interview as well. But when it comes to a judicial intern, a CV, your curriculum vitae, and a cover letter should suffice. There are certain judges who also expect a curriculum vitae, a statement of purpose as to why do you want to pursue this judicial internship, a cover letter as well as a writing sample, because then they're able to understand if if a particular research is given, will you be able to draft it, or will you be able to especially this helps them when. So a lot many judges have to attend a lot of educational events. By educational events, I mean they give a lot of speeches or they attend a lot of sessions and conferences per se. So during such times, they have certain messages or they write forwards for books. So by your writing sample, they are able to understand or gauge if if you will be able to take up that particular work, that is of drafting speeches or writing forward or writing messages and or researching for speeches per se. Secondly, what constitutes a good application? I think, like I said, focus on your academics, but not just from a marks perspective, but from the law perspective, because a judge is not concerned about your marks. He's not concerned if you're rank 1 or rank 2. What he would expect from you is the knowledge of a particular law. It is about if you know your CPC, your provisions of your CPC, or your provisions of your CRPC, or the sections of your IPC, or the articles in your constitution quite well or not. Because at last, it is about your knowledge, gauge you and gauge what sort of what sort of knowledge you possess by just interacting with you once or twice. So when you have a particular skill set, which is research or ability to sift through large amounts of material in a small span of time, which is nothing but speed reading, I think that helps him and that aids him in his work. So I think what constitutes a good application is the skill sets that you develop, basic knowledge of law, your researching skills, your speed reading, your analytical skills, your flow of writing, and so on and so forth.
Yep, I think that definitely answers my question. My next question is actually with respect to judicial clerkships. So a lot of students actually want to do judicial clerkships and then they try to do judicial internships to actually get a feel of what exactly a judicial clerkship would be like. So would you want to make a comment on that? And also, do you think that judicial internships increase your chances of actually getting a judicial clerkship?
Yes. Okay. Both questions. For both the questions, the short answer is yes. Now I'll elaborate on both of them. A judicial internship helps you in two ways. First, you get a feeling of the entire work process and the work culture. You don't feel out of place on your first day as a law clerk. And like I said, the work that you do as a judicial intern is the same work that you do as a law clerk. Maybe as a law clerk, you will have to put in that extra effort of proofreading intern's brief once or twice, or going through that intern's research again, or rechecking the research that he's done. Also, as a law clerk, you will have an access to a judge and you will be able to express your thoughts more freely, because the interaction that an intern has with a judge is for 2 months. You can have that interaction for a year, sometimes 2, and in some exceptional cases, even 3 years. So, I mean, normally the norm of a judicial clerkship is 1 year, sometimes 2. So, coming back to the point as to what does it help? Yes, of course it does. Secondly, why should one pursue a judicial internship before a clerkship with that particular judge? Is because a judge's office is nothing but confidentiality and secrecy. There are quite, when there are high profile cases, the judge must be able to trust you. So when he interacts with you day in and day out, he is able to understand, he becomes comfortable with your style of working. He starts understanding your way of working. And that helps you, just like in a law firm, when you intern and then you gain a PPO, it's just the way it works with a judge as well. You work with him. He's able to see your work. And if he's impressed by your quality of work, he will offer you a clerkship. So I would always advise people to go for a judicial internship, because that will eventually culminate into a clerkship. Your first question and your second question, could you just repeat it? I just want to see to it that I haven't missed out on any of it.
Yeah, for sure. So one question was, a lot of people actually try to do judicial internships to try to increase their chances of actually getting a judicial clerkship. And the second was, if a judicial internship actually does give you a feel of the type of work that you're going to have to do as a judicial clerk.
Yes. I think I just told you about how your work as a judicial intern is similar, or rather the same as a law clerk. And yes, it does culminate into a clerkship, because you're able to showcase your work, you're able to showcase your skill set. And if you're able to work well, of course, you will get a judicial clerkship. But of course, you have to express your interest, and you need to tell your particular judge that I would like to clerk under your tutelage. And accordingly, if he has vacancy, he will always offer you one if you stand out in that entire cohort of interns or cohort of trainees.
All right. So I think my next question is actually with respect to the workload that you get in an internship. So how would you compare the workload that you got as a judicial intern versus, let's say, an intern somewhere else? It could be at a corporate law firm or anywhere else. And also, as a follow-up to that question, how much is the homework that you actually get how much is the homework that you get as a judicial intern, like work that you might have to go back home and then carry on with?
Okay, all right. So as a judicial intern, from my past internships, we work 7 days a week. I will tell you the reason behind working 7 days a week. Mondays and Fridays are miscellaneous days, like I told you beforehand. And you get 60 to 70 files on both days. Now you have to prepare notes for those files. Now imagine every single file that you go through as an intern. If the impugned order, sometimes, if you are lucky, the impugned order might just be of 1 or 2 pages, say if it's a bail application. But if it's a commercial law issue, or if it's a criminal law, if it's an appeal against conviction, those judgments run in 70 to 80 pages. Now you have to read that entire judgment and then decide what is the most important aspect of it, and write down that particular aspect in the impugned order in your brief. So it does require you to work 7 days a week, because Friday files have come by Monday and they have to be done by Thursday evening. Monday files come to you by Thursday evening, Friday morning, and they have to be done by Sunday. So as a law clerk, you normally work 7 days a week. As a judicial intern, since you're there for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, it's not that you will be working 7 days a week. You can always ask for your weekly off. But normally interns do not take a weekly off, generally speaking, because the work is quite exciting. Every day in the Supreme Court is exciting, because every day there is evolution of law that is taking place. I mean, you open live law and you open bar and bench, and you will understand that, oh, the Supreme Court gave a judgment about this today. Oh, the law was evolved today. This is something which is, they acquitted somebody, or they held someone to be guilty. So every day something or the else comes up, and it's quite challenging and quite interesting. So normally someone who comes for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, or sometimes even for 4 weeks, normally people don't want to miss on to that opportunity and don't take a weekly off. As a law clerk, again, you work 7 days a week. You do get your weekly off because, well, you have some household chores as well to perform. But like I said, it's so interesting that you don't want to miss on to work. Unlike corporate internships wherein Saturday and Sunday is off, or Saturday is a half day and Sunday is an off, judicial internship does not work that way. Yeah. Have I answered this question?
Yep. I think definitely answered the question. So I think this is probably one of my last questions for today's session. So, I mean, this is again another concern that a lot of students applying for a judicial internship have, as to how much one-to-one time will they actually get with the judge that they're interning under.
Okay. So it basically depends upon a judge. It depends upon his workload. It depends upon the time he can dedicate to an intern. Now, usually judges, as a matter of principle, meet their clerks and their interns near about every day. If they're super busy, that's when they are unable to meet you. But throughout the day, you will at least as a law clerk, you meet your judge before he leaves the office, after he comes from office, in the evening, during the afternoon, as and when he has a particular issue or a doubt in a particular file or in the brief. The same way it works with an intern as well, because when you make a brief and there is something that he would like to ask you about that particular paper book, about that particular impugned judgment, he will call you. So usually judges do meet their interns every day. Of course, a judge will not spend an hour or two with you every single day, because it's impossible with the amount of workload that they have to handle. But yes, you will be able to meet him every day. So there is no doubt about it. The learning is what I mean. Even if you're able to meet him for a short span of time, you will learn something out of it. In all my internships, say with Justice Chandrachud or with Justice Nazir, or currently as a clerk to Justice Roy, I have learned something every single day, because they will share certain life anecdotes with you. They will share their time as an advocate or as a senior advocate, or the time when they were just new to the bar and they had just joined. They were fresh, literally fresh out of college and had just joined the bar, and how their life was, or how so it'll always be a learning experience. They will always educate you or knowledge you about certain provisions, certain sections. You can always ask them certain questions, certain doubts, and they will always try and solve it to the best of their abilities. And like I said, every single day you will get to learn something new. Every single day will be interesting.
Yep, I think definitely after this session, you've definitely motivated a lot of us to actually apply for the judicial internship and also consider this as a very viable opportunity. So thanks a lot for that. I think we could end the session. If you have any parting remarks, you could go ahead, sir.
I actually like this entire concept of Plan T, and I really like the name Plan T, of course, Plan Together. And thank you so much for inviting me and having me on this session. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. You are actually creating opportunities for people who lack on to such opportunities. National law school students always have an edge over the others, but this is you're trying to bridge the gap in law education, and I think I applaud you for it. It's quite laudable of what you guys have done.
Thank you so much, but it's actually all you that's actually allowing this to happen. So thanks a lot. And we really thank you for taking out the time to come for this session. It was a wonderful session.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.